The night began so quiet I could hear the coffee tremble in its cup. We were parked under a street lamp washed in pale yellow, the kind of light that makes everything look tired. The air was cool and damp, and a thin mist clung to the asphalt like breath on glass. I checked the trauma bag by touch, counting gauze and tape with gloved fingers while the radio whispered in soft bursts, then fell back to silence. My partner hummed a tune he never finished. I watched the red reflection of our unit number pulse across the hood and felt my eyelids grow heavy. Out on the main road, the city slowed to a crawl. No sirens, no horns, just the faraway rumble of a freight train and the faint buzz of the dashboard lights. I told myself it would be an easy shift, 2 calls at most. Falls, chest pain, the kind of work that brings order to chaos and then fades. But the radio crackled once hard, like it cleared its throat. And something in me woke up. I didn't know it yet, but tonight would follow me home. Most nights blend together after a while. The same coffee runs, the same hospital hallways that smell like disinfectant and sleeplessness. I've worked this route long enough to know every cracked sidewalk and broken streetlight between the west side and the industrial park. Routine keeps you sane in this job. You hold onto it like a rope in deep water. Evan, my partner, was the kind of guy who talked through the silence. He always said it kept the bad thoughts out. He told stories about his kids, joked about the cheap coffee, and called dispatch our invisible family. I'd laugh just to fill the space, but inside I was always listening. To the hum of the engine, the faint whir of the oxygen tanks, the radio that never really stopped breathing. We caught a few calls before midnight. A drunk fall on 3rd Street, a panic attack in a gas station restroom, both standard. The kind of calls you forget before sunrise. After the 2nd run, we stopped by the diner near the freeway for pie and refills. The waitress knew us by name, and that small bit of normalcy felt like home. Around 1:50 a.m., we parked outside the firehouse to wait for the next dispatch. The rain had turned soft, like it was tired of falling. Evan leaned back in his seat, half asleep, and I scrolled through old voicemails from my daughter. Everything about that moment felt safe, almost too safe. I remember thinking how strange it was to feel comfort in a job built on emergencies. Then the radio let out a long, uneven tone. Not the usual alert. This one dragged, glitched, then cut to silence. Evan looked at me and raised an eyebrow. I shrugged it off, probably interference. But a part of me, a quiet, buried part, felt something shift. The calm we'd been floating in was about to break. The call came through at 2:17 a.m. The radio didn't chirp the way it normally does. It hissed, broke, then a voice slid in. Quiet, almost whispering. Unit 419, respond to County Road 314. Possible unresponsive female. Then static swallowed the rest. Evan frowned, tapping the receiver. County Road? That can't be right. He was right to question it. That area had been closed off after the old mill fire years ago. The city rerouted everything through Highway 9. There shouldn't have been a signal coming from there at all. He called back for confirmation, but dispatch didn't respond immediately. All we heard was that soft static again, like breathing caught between frequencies. Then the voice returned, clearer but strange. Not the dispatcher we knew. Just one line. Please hurry. It didn't sound like a report, it sounded like a plea. We both stared at the map screen. The coordinates blinked, glitching between 2 points before locking in on a patch of road that no longer existed in our system. I checked twice, still the same. Evan broke the silence first. Could be a relay issue or someone using the old towers. He started the engine before I could argue. I didn't stop him. Calls are calls, and sometimes the worst ones start with confusion. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't supposed to go there. As we turned off the main road, the rain returned, sharp, fast, relentless. The windshield wipers beat in rhythm with my pulse. The road signs grew older, more worn. Even the air felt heavier, like the storm was pressing down on us. I tried calling dispatch again, but this time the line stayed dead. No voice, no static, just silence. That's when I noticed something strange. The system clock in the dashboard flickered, resetting itself again and again. 2:17, 2:17, 2:17, the exact time the call came in. I wanted to say something, but Evan's eyes were fixed on the dark road ahead. We were already too far in to turn back. The road narrowed until it barely looked like a road at all. The asphalt broke apart in long, jagged lines, and weeds pushed through the cracks like veins. Our headlights cut through thick fog that rolled across the ground in uneven waves. It looked alive, shifting with every gust of wind. The GPS stopped tracking a mile back, frozen on an empty grid. Evan slowed the ambulance, his eyes darting between the mirrors. "You sure this is the spot?" he asked quietly. I didn't answer. The mailbox ahead of us had no numbers left, just rust and a faint outline of something once painted there. According to the console, this was 314 County Road, or what was left of it. We stepped out into air so still it almost hummed. The rain had died to a drizzle, but everything smelled like metal and ash. My flashlight beam caught pieces of glass scattered in the mud, maybe from an old accident. The only sound was the gentle ticking of the cooling engine behind us. No traffic, no movement, not even insects. I called out, "EMS!" My voice felt swallowed by the fog. Nothing answered. We walked further off the shoulder, scanning the ditches, the tree line, anywhere someone might have collapsed. Then faintly, through the static of the handheld radio, came that same voice. Softer now. "Please, hurry." Evan stopped walking. His light caught something ahead near a half-broken fence. For a second I thought it was just debris, but then I saw her. A figure sitting against the post, head tilted slightly down. She didn't move, didn't speak, just sat there in the rain. We approached slowly, every step heavier than the last. My boots sank into the mud as I reached out my hand and called to her again. This time she lifted her head. Her eyes caught the light, reflecting pale gray, empty yet aware. And just before I could ask if she was hurt, she whispered something that made my throat go dry. I didn't think anyone would come back. She looked fragile, like someone pulled out of a dream and set down in the wrong place. Her clothes were soaked through, the fabric clinging to her arms and face. Mud streaked her legs and her lips trembled, but not from cold. There was something hollow in her eyes, as if they were trying to remember what they'd seen. I crouched beside her, keeping my voice steady. "Ma'am, can you hear me? What's your name?" She nodded, just barely, but no words came out. Her pulse fluttered beneath my glove, too fast, then too faint. Evan draped a thermal blanket over her shoulders, and I checked for head trauma or fractures. Nothing obvious. Just the shaking and the way she kept glancing toward the tree line behind us. I followed her gaze but saw nothing, just fog and the dark skeletons of old trees. When I turned back, she whispered something under her breath, too soft to catch. I leaned closer. Her breath smelled faintly of smoke. "We have to go," I told Evan. He nodded and grabbed the stretcher. The woman didn't resist when we lifted her, but her eyes stayed open the entire time, locked on the same point behind us. As we rolled her toward the ambulance, I noticed her hands, pale, almost bluish, with thin cuts running across her knuckles like she'd clawed at something. Inside the rig, I started vitals. Her temperature read low, but her heart rate jumped between readings, the monitor beeping in confused bursts. I adjusted the leads. Nothing changed. Evan called dispatch again, trying to get a stable line, but the signal cracked and died halfway through his sentence. Then out of nowhere, she spoke. Her voice was soft, but every word was clear. "I shouldn't be here." I froze. Evan looked at me, waiting for a response, but I had none. She turned her head slightly, her eyes catching the faint red light of the monitor. "He told me not to wait this time." Before I could ask who, her pulse spiked and the monitor screamed. I pressed down on her wrist, feeling it fade beneath my hand. The first thing I noticed was the temperature. The heater was running full blast, but the air inside the ambulance had turned sharp and cold, like we were driving through open winter air. My breath fogged the visor of my mask. Evan said nothing, his focus locked on the road ahead, knuckles pale against the steering wheel. The woman lay still on the stretcher, wrapped tight in the blanket, her pulse finally steady. The monitor glowed faintly red in the dark, the only color inside the rig. I checked her vitals again, but the readings made no sense. Heart rate 78, then 143. Then 0 for half a second before it jumped back. I tapped the screen, thinking it was a malfunction. Evan's voice cut through the quiet. "She said something again, didn't she?" I nodded. "She said she shouldn't be here." The radio crackled suddenly, just static at first, then the faint sound of crying. A woman's voice, muffled, breaking through in fragments. Evan reached for the mic. "Dispatch, repeat that. You're cutting out." But the moment he spoke, the sound vanished. Not a pop, not a fade, just gone. I tried to focus on procedure. Airway clear, oxygen steady, no signs of trauma. But the sense of wrongness grew heavier, like gravity itself was pressing down on the rig. The smell changed, too. Not blood, not antiseptic. Something metallic, faintly sweet like old coins and burned wires. Then out of nowhere, she opened her eyes. They didn't move to me right away. They stared past me toward the back doors, unfocused, almost frightened. I leaned closer, my voice low. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Her pupils dilated, and then slowly she turned her head. When her eyes met mine, I felt my stomach drop. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking through me. And in the faintest whisper, barely louder than breath, she said my full name. Not the one on my badge, the one only my daughter uses when she's scared. The monitor beeped once, long, flat, and cold. Then everything inside the ambulance flickered to black. For a few seconds, there was nothing. No hum of the engine, no beeping from the monitor. Just darkness so deep it felt solid. My pulse filled the silence like thunder trapped in my ears. Evan slammed the brakes and the rig jerked to a stop in the middle of the road. Then just as suddenly, the power came back. Lights, siren panel, everything, except the patient. She was sitting upright now, hands folded neatly over the blanket, eyes half open but glassy. I froze mid-motion, my hand hovering above the monitor leads. Evan's voice broke. "Did she?" He didn't finish. The word "move" hung unspoken between us. I stepped closer, checking for signs of consciousness. Her chest rose once, then stopped. When I reached for her wrist, her fingers twitched. Slow, deliberate, and wrapped around my wrist, ice cold. Her grip tightened until my glove squeaked against her skin. "Stop," I whispered, trying to pull free. But she looked right at me then. There was awareness in her eyes now, sharp and searching. And what she said next didn't sound like a question. "Why did you come back?" The air inside the rig changed. Every light dimmed to a dull red, and the siren control flickered without touch. The smell of burnt metal grew stronger. Evan muttered that we had to pull over, that maybe the inverter was failing. I couldn't answer. I was staring at the heart monitor. It showed 2 lines, hers and mine, beating in perfect sync. Then both flatlined. The speakers let out a deafening burst of static. Through it, for half a second, I heard that same woman's voice from the dispatch. Not the patient's. The one that had whispered, "Please hurry." Evan slammed the rig into park, throwing open the driver's door to get out, but when he did, the fog outside was gone. No rain, no sound. Just a black road stretching endlessly in both directions. I turned back toward the stretcher. It was empty. Only the blanket remained, folded carefully, as if someone had been waiting for us to notice. We drove the rest of the way in silence. The rain had stopped completely, yet the windshield stayed wet, streaked with something that didn't look like water. Evan didn't ask where the woman went. He didn't have to. We both knew what we saw, or thought we saw, and neither of us could make sense of it. When we pulled into the hospital bay, the floodlights hit the ambulance like interrogation lamps. Everything looked too bright, too clean. I jumped out first, opened the back doors, and froze. The stretcher was spotless. Not a wrinkle in the blanket, not a trace of mud or blood. Only the faint impression where a body might have rested. The charge nurse met us at the door, clipboard in hand. "You guys bringing someone in?" she asked. I told her about the call, the patient, the vitals. She frowned, flipping through the dispatch log. "There's nothing here. County road's not even on the grid anymore." Evan swore under his breath, trying to pull up the report on his tablet, but the call ID was gone. The timestamp had reset. No record, no location, no coordinates, just a blank entry labeled error. We checked the equipment next. The monitor worked fine. The ECG cables were clean. The time on the unit clock, though, hadn't moved since the blackout. 2:41 a.m., I reset it twice. It stayed frozen. The nurse told us to go home, that maybe we'd mixed up another call. She said it kindly, but her eyes didn't match her voice. I think she saw how pale we looked. Evan handed in the incident sheet without another word. On the way out, I emptied my pockets before clocking off. That's when I found it, a small broken bracelet wedged in my glove. Thin silver chain, cold to the touch, with a single charm shaped like a heart. I didn't remember taking it, but I knew it belonged to her. I told myself I'd turn it in later, yet somehow I never did. Even now, I can still feel its weight in my hand. I couldn't stop thinking about that road. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the fog, the broken fence, and that face staring back at me. I told myself it was exhaustion, that night shifts played tricks on tired minds. But the more I tried to bury it, the more it surfaced. 3 nights later, I drove back. Not in uniform, no lights, just my own car and a restless need to know if County Road 314 even existed. The GPS wouldn't load it. Every time I typed the address, it redirected to a blank space between 2 highways. The system called it undeveloped land. Still, I drove where memory guided me. Through the same curves, past the same empty signs, until the pavement vanished beneath my headlights. There was nothing there. No mailbox, no fence, just weeds swaying under the beam of my headlights. I stepped out, the night air colder than before, and walked until the ground sloped downward. That's when I saw the rusted metal sticking out of the dirt. A car door, half buried. The rest of it lay crushed beneath the embankment, as if the earth itself had swallowed it whole. I checked the VIN plate through the mud and took a picture. The next day, I showed it to an officer I knew at the precinct. He ran the number quietly, away from curious ears. When he came back, his expression said more than words could. "Accident, same area. Exactly 1 year ago," he told me. "Woman mid-30s, no survivors, cause of death, drowning. Car went off the bridge during a storm. Time of report, 2:41 a.m. I asked about the bracelet. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, they found one with her. Silver, heart charm, initials scratched off." He leaned closer then, lowering his voice. "You know what's strange? Dispatch swore they got a distress call that night too, same coordinates, same wording. But the caller's voice was never identified. I thanked him, though I barely heard myself speak. On the drive home, I glanced at the passenger seat. The bracelet lay where I'd left it, gleaming faintly in the dark. For a second, I swore it moved. It has been months since that night, but sleep still feels like a door I can't fully close. I lie awake listening to every sound. The hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the walls, the faint echo of a siren somewhere far away. Each time my body tenses before my mind catches up. It's never just a siren to me anymore. It's a memory replaying itself in disguise. I've tried to explain it to people, co-workers, therapists, even Evan. But words never come out right. How do you tell someone you can still feel the temperature of a night that shouldn't have existed? That sometimes when I drive past a field after rain, I smell the same metallic air that surrounded us on County Road. The worst moments are the quiet ones between midnight and dawn. That's when the world feels too still, and the smallest sound, a phone buzz, a distant horn, pulls me back to that single minute frozen in time. 2:41 a.m. I still keep the bracelet in my locker. I've tried to throw it away twice. Both times I found it sitting on the passenger seat of my car the next morning. I don't tell anyone that part. Some things sound too much like madness when spoken out loud. Every shift since then, I find myself glancing at the radio, waiting for static that never comes. Some nights I catch my reflection in the side mirror, and for half a second it doesn't look like me. It looks tired, older, as if a piece of that fog never left. People always assume trauma is loud, screaming, flashing lights, panic. But real fear is quiet. It hides in the silence between heartbeats, in the thought you can't shake, in the sound of your own name whispered when no one's there. I still drive the same roads, still answer the same calls, but when I hear that faint wail of a siren far off in the night, I look through the windshield and see it. That empty stretch of road disappearing into fog, waiting, patient and unchanged. Sometimes I swear it's waiting for me to come back.